All right, so this is the AI agents lunch and learn, and the whole purpose of this is to get an understanding of what our workshop is, um, and so I can really dig into the details about that here in a minute. But first, who am I? So next slide. I am Mick McGrath, Director of DevOps and now AI Agents at Bitovi. Um, we've been doing automation for a while, and now we're coming at this from the audit. We're coming at all of this sort of new emerging technology from the automation side. And so it turns out that's the side that I think is going to really allow this LLM technology to like be properly integrated into the enterprise and stuff. And so yeah, we're basically adding intelligence bits to our automation side, and bringing the data science value up into the actual enterprise. Anyway, I'm keenly fascinated about all this stuff. You'll probably pick up a little bit on the enthusiasm as we go through this, but to give a really high level spiel attempt at the AI agent workshop, our goal really is to help organizations make sense of all these new puzzle pieces. So AI is throwing all like disrupting all sorts of different things. We can pull value, we can have meaning, like automations with meaning and semantics, and like a lot of new use cases, and new tools are popping up every day, and a lot of them are super valuable. A lot of them are hype. Which ones should you use? Which ones are compatible with what you already have? All that stuff is what the workshop is aimed to sort of unpack. How do you actually get real value out of all this emerging technology, and get it integrated into your environment in a way that you can really get value out of it? So getting that sweet ROI really is the goal of trying to see how we can actually leverage this stuff. So that's our workshop. The workshop is about 4 hours, roughly, give or take 2 hours, I'd say. And it's pretty cheap. It's right around free. It's $4,000 with two discounts that we can talk about here in a little bit. But we want as low barrier as we possibly can. That's why like this also just free 30-minute call, just to like get an insight into is this even relevant for you guys. And yeah, so it's about 4 hours. There's knowledge transfer from us to you, knowledge transfer from you to us. And then the workshop together is aimed at identifying valuable use cases with a team of 8 to 12 people, and driving towards and like prioritizing those use cases based on value that you and your organization define. So we help suss all of that out. And we drive towards a use case that we identify the steps involved with implementing and automating that use case with an intelligence layer. And so you come away with like a nice blueprint of the actual workflow that we would start towards implementing. You get insight into the tooling that we use and the way that we're actually able to move really swiftly in implementing what we have based on constraints, whatever they are in your organization. So yeah, you get pretty good insight into all that. That's the workshop itself. We've got this agenda here. I can sort of dig into some other meaty content, but all right, so we can get into some interesting details here about agents. What are AI agents? It's the hot topic. It's I guess a hot topic. I found out I'm in a bit of a bubble. I think the bubble is like expanding, but AI agents means is sort of vague, I guess, in a lot of contexts. So what are AI agents? It's a AI agent is essentially like it's essentially a loop that you give reasoning and tools. So AI agent, you give a goal, you give it tools, and technologically I can talk about how you give it tools and what like actually that means. But it's like essentially API calls to an LLM. And so but you put that in a loop where it can determine which tools it wants to use, and then it can reason towards a goal using those tools and information that it has in response from those tools. So that's an agent. You give it a goal and push it towards a task. The challenging part right now with agents is that there's some benefits here. They perceive, reason, and act with an environment because you give it tools and it acts on context towards a goal. And then we can alleviate a lot of the human verification stuff. You can stay on the other one for a second here. It can tackle like humans don't have to be as involved because there are decisions that it can make that humans can offload a little bit. So that's one of the real draws to this. And then they can work around the clock. So you don't have to wait until the morning to like make this one small decision if you've given ownership to that intelligence layer. But really, so the way that we approach agents actually is like if you imagine a continuum from traditional automation, which is just like if an event happens, if the value is this, do this. If the value is this, do this. So like this sort of rule-based approach to sort of navigating like decision making. And then you can start to add, instead of an if statement here, it's an LLM, to call like an HTTP call to an LLM that says like, here's some data, which path should I choose? Should I, path A or path B? So you start to like inject some like decision, capabilities with these intelligence layer bits. And then you can also move that all the way up to the agents, where you actually build these tools and you give it tools and it actually acts on a loop. And then you can actually embed agent loops, like these little agents, inside of these sort of bigger intelligent automation. So like we're really big on not just AI agents, but also intelligent automation. And so like the tagline that I really like that I'll throw out there is intelligently automated artificial intelligence. So that's got a nice little palindromic, thing to it anyway. But like we want to approach this, like there are a lot of processes that you need to implement, like especially in an enterprise, like you need to do this before you do this. And like that happens in a lot of like really complex situations. And agents with the intelligence layers that we have right now, this like, here's a goal, here's some tools, often will get confused. And so the framework that we use allows us to sort of build traditional automation and ramp it up into intelligent automation really seamlessly. So anyway, so there's a bit of a like, AI agents are like the end of a continuum from traditional automation. Okay, so yeah, a lot of things to consider when implementing this. You've got access to things like, how do you want, you don't want to have an intelligence layer that just has access to all the tools all at once, because they're, that who you give it to matters, and it's where you really focus on the end user and focusing on their experience, and your access should sort of mirror or play nicely with that. Yeah, and then security policies and compliance, this sort of graph-based execution approach allows us to put guardrails in places that we need guardrails, and put like approval workflows is down here, like approval mechanisms to like connect to external systems and wait, not allow you to do, some task that's behind some, approval wall or something like that. Yeah, networking considerations, like we have been doing this for years in terms of automation. So like identifying the systems that need to be connected to, what are the authentication mechanisms, like how do you sort of navigate that from a networking perspective, and the DevOps and SRE system setup and all that. Like there's like, it's not just a model. A model is a file, and a file has like a system that like a process that runs against that file that you can interact with. But then that has to live on a machine, and that machine has to interact with other machines. And so like there's this real like deployment, networking integration sort of aspect to these intelligent systems, like these AI systems, that I think is the approach that we take is I think well suited to handle. Yeah, and yeah, so lots of things to consider, lots of constraints here. Data privacy again. How do you get your data? Where do you put your data? How do you have your automation systems accessing the data? How do you scale up, and where, and like which pieces do you need to scale up? You don't need like 15 instances of a UI if all your processing is going on in the on the back end, that kind of stuff. Yeah, keeping in mind just all the pieces. A lot of these we will surface in the workshop, and not all of these might matter to you immediately. I'm sure, probably all of them eventually will, and some matter more than others. So we try to identify which constraints you have, which things that should be considered given the use case that you're working on. We surface all those and prioritize those, and we've got, techniques to sort of navigate all of the constraints. All right, so benefits of AI agents. Let's see here. Yep, reducing operational costs. This is just in terms of one of the best use cases of AI agents is like people often have to spend a lot of time just looking stuff up that you could easily give something access to. And so like instead of ingesting all of the data or hiring a bunch of people to like really train up on your Confluent stocks for one specific process flow, in that process flow, you can just like have an intelligence layer have access to a Confluence API, formulate what to search in Confluence, and pull that back in context for that use case, instead of having to train a bunch of people to like remember it, or even just ingest all of Confluence. Like some approaches I've seen, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen, where okay, we have Confluence, we need to be able to ask like meaningful questions, semantic questions about Confluence. Let's just vectorize all of Confluence. That's one approach. Another approach is like with a workflow, where if I have a goal that I need to like respond in Slack or something like that based on something in Confluence, whatever that something in Confluence is, make up a few questions about that, and then just have the agent like query the API for like a subset of those documents, and then reason about that subset, and then pull out the relevant information. So you're sort of using a combination of structured query search and semantic query search that, you know, again, we can also dig into given the use cases. So there are lots of different types of use cases. Here's a good one for just, you know, on a timer, go and get some information from an external source. In this case, it's going and get instructions, I think, is for you know, outreach for our delivery. So like if we, you know, we interact with our clients and we want to make sure our clients are really cared for, and we care a lot about what they're doing, and so we want to be notified whenever they are doing things in the market, or they're, you know, making progress on their technology and things. And so we want to go get instructions that says like, here are the places to go look for information. For example, our clients post in these channels, go look there. So that's just like natural language, look at these places. And then we keep our clients in HubSpot. In our HubSpot, we can go get a list of those folks that we care about, all of our clients and past clients, and kind of see what they're up to. And then we can put that into and feed that then essentially into an agent, which has tools like look things up on Wikipedia, do a Google search, do a like pull content from, you know, websites and blog posts and things like that, so that we can, you know, extract things that our clients are doing, and you know, find, you know, get up-to-date information about all of that, and then store that somewhere in a structured example. Anyway, so that's what this is. But again, this is like for a very specific use case for marketing. This might not apply to you, but what I think does apply is the fact that all of these steps are easily interchangeable with other concepts. So like, you're just going to get information about something, you're going to get a list from somewhere else on which to act, you loop over that, and for each thing in that list, you have a little agent saying, here's like a little agent process saying, like, given this bit of information, this item in the list, and the tools that I have available, output some result. And so like, that is a very common approach. And a lot of agent workflows, like agents within intelligent workflows, will look something like this, you know, mustache guy here with his little eyes and nose and little mustache over there. Anyway, it's something along these lines. And so, but there's a lot of variation in that. And I get really excited about the fact that at the end of one of these workshops, you end up with something like this. And this is like, this is a pretty close representation of what the actual implementation would look like. We use a tool called N8N, letter N, number 8, letter N. That is it's a low code, you know, visual interface for like representing these workflows. And like some of these would be, you know, a Google Drive node. One of these would be a, you know, an LLM call, you know, call to the LLM or something. Anyway, so it's a nice way to visualize this. And it's a really good, like, this is pretty close to what an actual agent workflow or an intelligent workflow might look like. So anyway, lots of different use cases we could go through. Yeah, we did a lot of research for like deciding which approach to take. There are a lot of different approaches that you could take for agents. Like I said, one is the sort of the simplest agent is, you know, given a goal and a set of tools, loop over that until goal satisfied sufficiently, you know, or whatever. And there are different approaches to that. Crew AI, I think, focuses on having agents like that collaborate with each other. So then they have to like share information in some way. So there's like memory sharing mechanisms across agents. You've got like routing mechanism, like, you know, agent A is like a research agent. Agent B is like a, you know, a document creation agent. So at what point does agent A say, I'm done with research for the time being, now you go write the stuff? And at what point does the thing writing the stuff say, I need more information, research agent needs to go back? So like, all that stuff needs to be coordinated. And then LangGraph is a graph-based approach, and this is what I really gravitated towards, because it gives us so much power and flexibility. You can build the traditional AI agent, you know, you sort of the simpler approach. You can build that, and in these sort of hierarchies of like, you know, managers and sub agents, like Crew AI really pushes for, you know, managers and managers of managers and that kind of stuff. You can reproduce all of that in LangGraph, but you also have like a rigid set of steps that you can introduce to have like an approval mechanism, or, you know, some sort of a cleansing step, or, you know, some sort of a policy, you know, checking step or whatever. you can put those as hard parts of the processes. So we really like this graph-based approach. And then N8N, like, so LangGraph is code. I think LangGraph, you can do JavaScript and Python. It's very imperative, so it's programming. But I've got a declarative approach where like you build your JSON and anyway. So if you're curious about like declarative based approach to LangGraph, let me know, because I like working with that. But then we're also working a lot with N8N, which, like I said, is the low code drag and drop editor for this. Oh yeah, here's a good representation of it, and I can show a demo potentially of this too. But this is like almost exactly the one that we saw earlier, where you've got, in this case, just a Google Drive trigger. Somebody like goes and like messes with a file, like changes the instructions of the file, and that triggers a relookup of the stuff that the file talks about. So there's like some good UX for you. Like the user experience is just modify the file. So that's fun. Anyway, the file gets modified. We get the contents of the file, which are the instructions. We pass that into an agent that has tools. And you can see those tools like hooked down there at the bottom. And so you can build these tools and hook them up. And then you attach your intelligence layer, in this case, OpenAI, but it's got connectors for pretty much everything. And it's open source, so you can build your own connectors if for some reason they don't have something, which we have done. And then you add a bit of memory, because you want like during this conversation memory, so that you can say like, you don't have to like, re-describe your problem every single time. It's got like, you ask the first question and it's there, and you can say like, what do you mean by that? And it like knows what that means. Anyway, that's what the window buffer memory gives you. But you've got this agent that has tools associated with it. And then you've got structured output, like sort of built right there. So you've got this sort of JSON output. You can define either an example JSON object, or you can define a full-on JSON schema that has rules and stuff like that, and then that will be worked into what's actually sent to the LLM. And then what actually comes out of that node, then any intelligence layer node that you define a schema for, you get like structured output. So like it's just baked right in to the workflow here. And like each one of these you can open up. Nodes are essentially just input, do something, output. Output of one node connects to the input of another. That's in like workflows too. So if you have like the last node of a workflow, its output, if you attach that and call that from a higher workflow, it's just like whatever happened last. So anyway, the output and input matter a lot, and then what happens in the middle, you can either read stuff, write stuff, modify stuff, whatever. And it's a very simple concept, very visual, easy to work with. I like it a lot. I can't talk more highly about it. If you want to talk about N8N, hit me up, and we can spend days probably talking about all the stuff that you can do there. So anyway, we like it a lot. It's a good approach. Allows us to be really swift. So, all right, spotting AI opportunities in your organization. Yeah, okay. So here's a good like rough framework. Identify the users. So these are what the goal here is, to try to get value out of AI. Like, how do we leverage AI for return on investment? So like identify where you want that return to come from, right? Identify the users that you're trying to make happy, that are going to like lead you in the direction that you want to go in. So identify your users, all the data there. Identify your metrics and goals, the things that you're going to like actually try to move, and then tie that to some of the stuff that we're doing, like tangibly, like what are we going to change? So like one example might be, we want to reduce the mean time to recovery of a help desk. Somebody, system goes down, developer calls help desk, like what happened to my system. These SREs like spend quite a bit of time going and looking up information in different systems and services to go and answer that question. Like, oh, here's what happened. This database, crashed because the hardware died or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, so we want to like identify all those. Lost my train of thought there. That happens from time to time. But then but we're going to identify the things that we can that we can modify in the workflow, and then identify how many of those things that we're like really certain about, like we can definitely do this, versus like, I don't know if we have enough information in this data for the intelligence layer to get enough meaning to make the decision we want it to make, right? So there's some uncertainty there, and like we just like set that aside as like, let's assume that we can like iterate towards this in some way, and like we can have some experiments and stuff, and then just do science on that. And so like we really try to get swift to value, which means that we've set up the infrastructure to iterate on these different use cases. And then the things that we're uncertain about, we can iterate on the quality and build that up over time. And so we've got different mechanisms of feeding in different types of data. N8N makes it really easy. There's all kinds of different triggers, and you can do basically anything in the universe that you care to do. And so, yeah, it's just a matter of like identifying what really matters to you and your users and the KPIs there, and just following those. One, so and just really how like there's so many things you could use it for. So we try to categorize stuff, and the best category that I can come up with um, is like, I guess, evident in the use case I mentioned with the SREs looking stuff up. You need to, a lot of people need to spend a lot of time going and gathering information, gathering context to then make a decision. So like, can we just gather that context much more quickly and efficiently so that decisions can be made more quickly? That's I think one of the key areas to look for. There's a lot of low hanging fruit there. All right, how are we on time? We got like 4 minutes. I can give a quick sneak peek of the mural board if you want to see that real quick. Just to give a high level. Oh, sharing is not turned on. Request sent.
I got you.
Okay. All right. Let's see which one. I think this one's probably the one. We'll go for it. Do you see the slide deck? Yeah, Agents Lunch and Learn with Bitovi.
Yep.
All right. So I think up here I've got. Oh, I see that thing. This okay. That's in the way. Here's an example of like roughly a workshop. So the one, like I said, is about 4 hours. There's us information to you. That's basically um, this primer. Like, what are agents? What does the market look like? What can you actually do? What's feasible? What does it take to implement them? What is an agent system? All that stuff. That's basically this blog post, but it's like me helping you understand what the agent ecosystem looks like and what the automation, intelligent automation ecosystem looks like, so that whenever we do use cases, you'll sort of have an idea of what's feasible. All right, so that's essentially what this is. We've got better looking versions of this, but this is essentially that thing. We go into some details about like what's possible and stuff. And that this looks a lot better today. We have like a slide deck and stuff. Anyway, but this is the actual workshop flow roughly. This is a subset of what it actually looks like. But really, we've got some introductions. Like here we are. Here's the agenda. Here's like board mechanics. This is in Miro that we're working with. And so here, how do you navigate around? How do you like create your own stickies and stuff like that? But we essentially come down here and 8 to 12 people write on the stickies ideas that they think are valuable. A good like example, a good like title for what they think is valuable, and then we everybody has a chance to talk about those things, and then we vote on them. Everybody votes on them, and then the one that gets to the top, we actually go in and model the things that we need to do in order to make that happen. So we look at things from the user perspective. What whoever the value receiver of this implementation is, you say, what do they first see? They upload a document, and then what happens? They get a document back. Okay, so we just follow what happens between them uploading a document and getting some response, right? And so what systems are involved, what credentials are involved, what stakeholders and parties are involved, what does our timeline look like? All of that, just so you have a really good idea of what it takes to implement this in your environment, and then we boil that down to more solutions, and then here is like, if you really want to follow the white rabbit down the rabbit hole, this is the white rabbit jumping down into the thing there, and this is like the next step, sort of deeper level product. We're going to like surface a really good use case, high level, but often those are still just even the tip of the iceberg, and so like there's going to be a lot of nuance and a lot more sort of depth of thinking that needs to be involved. And Bitovi does this product workshop too, and so that's sort of the next leg of the journey if you want to get in there. If it's complex enough, sometimes like implementation, we can also do sort of right away too. But anyway, so that's that. Like you'll come away with like some actual implementable, workflows. And the two discounts that I mentioned, one of them is if you work with us, if you allow us and work with us to do. If you allow us the honor of working with you to actually do the implementation phase, there's 2,000 off there, like half price off, and then the other part, the other half goes away if you like anything that we do and we can speak about it publicly in a favorable light. There's another 2,000 off, so essentially makes the workshop free. And I think that sort of gets us to the end here. I could show some example workflows or stuff, but like I said, I think we're at time. And yeah, I'll hope to see you at the workshops.